How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Sorry, it's been a minute since I made another video, but been going through some life struggles. We might dive into that here while watching this video, because there's some talking points that I kind of want to go over and delve into in terms of life and how things seem to be going for myself, as well as it seems to be going for others that I see around me or I just see online that may not be, a big section of the online community, but it's a big section of the population. And I feel like sometimes you just need to let people hear certain perspectives and maybe they'll see life a different way and try to live life a little bit better. But again, I apologize for being, not posty a lot in terms of videos. I did a few live streams here and there. A few people saw. Appreciate the support in any way that you guys want to show it. But without further ado, let's get into the video and see what's going on. Now, this video is going to go over a few reasons why the older generations seem to not necessarily understand, but can see points of view from the younger generations as to why people are mad, angry, more or less feel slighted, and feel like they were just put into a very, very bad situation with no control whatsoever. Especially in terms of how money and the way jobs are going this day and age, especially after COVID, because COVID just made things 10 times worse. This comes from MSNBC, and let's see what's happening.
Yeah. So Scott, let's get into your book. But first, run through, if you will. I've seen you talk about this in speeches. Talk about how the system is rigged. So if you got $1 million, great. If you got 5 million, 10 million, even better. Life gets easier because the way our tax system's set up.
Yeah, we have a very progressive tax system until you get to about the 99th percent. And essentially the people who get most damaged by our current tax code, it's lower and middle income households, their taxes have gone up slightly because of consumption, but not because of federal. The people that really get hurt are what I call the workhorses. And that are people who make an exceptionally good living, but it's all current income, and they live in a blue state. They might be paying 50 to 54% tax rate. I bet some of those people are on around this table right now. But if you can make the jump to light speed and invest in assets, stocks, housing, then your tax rate plummets. So in America, we've decided to try and create a super class of billionaires, and then if they win the gold medal, we're going to give them the silver and the bronze. Two biggest tax deductions, capital gains and mortgage interest. Who owns homes and stocks? People my age. Who doesn't know? Who rents and makes their money from current income? Young people. So we've decided that the wealthiest people in the world should get exceptionally more wealthy. Minimum wage, stuck at 9.
As a 25-year-old, just turned 25. Thank God we made it here. I've made a lot of bad financial decisions in my life. And when I hear stories from people my mom's age and older, it just seemed like they made mistake after mistake after mistake, and they bounce back like as soon as they can, or as quick as they made the mistake. And from my experience, it's not easy to bounce back from mistakes, especially financial mistakes. I'm gonna let the video play because I feel like I'll be able to get more into that as this goes on.
25. Stock market is screamed up. The average 70-year-old is 72% wealthier than they were 40 years ago. The average person under the age of 40 is 24% less wealthy. We are purposely transferring more wealth from the poor and middle class to the upper class to the super rich, and from young to old.
And you say in the book, which is true and alarming, but let's say a 30-year-old American in America right now is doing no better than his or her parents. Then that's a new thing in American history that you would think over time, we want to do better than the next generation, than the last generation. It's not happening anymore.
Now let's just take a look at this graph, because this graph it's crazy. I thank God I'm able to make more than my mother. At least I have before. I don't do it now, but I have at one point in my life for a good span of time. And so it wasn't until I got to where I am now where I see everything wildly and vastly different in terms of the way I look at money, the way I spend money, and the value of money. Because financial literacy was not a big component of how I grew up, and it wasn't, harped on enough for me to even understand what it was. I remember when I first got into the military, the first thing I bought was $4,000 worth of gaming stuff, and I don't own any of the stuff then that I do now. So, as you can see, it just, the money didn't even matter, or like the items didn't even matter. I just spent money just because I had the money, and because the bank I'm still with gave me a credit card. It was like, here's $5,000, live your life. And I lived it. Yeah. Let's continue the video.
I think it all ties into what we're talking about on campuses. For the first time in our nation's history, a 30-year-old man or woman isn't doing as well as his or her parents were at 30. That is the social compact breaking down. People aged 30 to 34, 60% of them in 1990 had one child. Now it's 27%. People are opting out of America. They're not optimistic about it. They're not having kids. Young people aren't having sex. They're not meeting. They're not mating. The pool of emotionally and economically viable men shrinks every day, which lessens household formation. So we have a real issue.
I'll speak on that too. I was lucky to find a woman to have my baby. 100% lucky. Everybody don't get that opportunity. Everybody don't get that chance. Some people never have kids. And I'm one of the people who was lucky enough to want kids and have somebody who wanted to have kids with me. Or just have my kid, however you want to look at it. And so I know plenty of people who, I'll say like this: as a black man, it's not hard for black people to have children. As far as I have seen, it is not hard for a black man and a black woman to have a child. What happens after the fact, it just depends on the people themselves. But having kids is not hard in the black community, at least. But I do know a lot of white guys and a lot of Asian guys who do not have families, don't have kids, haven't really been able to find a woman to like hold them down or anything like that. And so it gets to you. It makes you wonder what's happening outside of my own bubble, outside of my own peer view. I knew a lot of guys in the military that didn't have kids, and it was strange to me, but to each his own is kind of how I brushed it off over the years. But the more and more you dive into it, and the more and more you think about it, you realize people really aren't, procreating like that for real. At least the way percentages go, Hispanic people have been the main ones really having kids in America. And whether or not you want to attribute that to immigration, that's cool, but they still having kids regardless. Their percentage has shot up exponentially in the past 10 years as opposed to everybody else. But let's continue the video.
Young people are enraged, so it turns every cut, every movement into an opportunistic infection because, quite frankly, they are just pissed off. They look up, they see wealth, exceptional wealth across my generation and people in certain industries, and they are really struggling. Their purchasing power is going down, and the incumbents create artificial scarcity on campus. We take pride in rejecting 90% of our applicants, so the incumbents who already have a degree see their degree go up in value. We get very concerned with housing and traffic once we own a housing. Housing permits are sequestered from young people. Housing prices have gone from $290 to $420 in the last 4 years. So a young person, a house, stocks that I don't own, skyrocket in value. Let's have COVID relief and flush the markets and take assets way up, because if 1 million people dying would be bad, it would be tragic if I got less wealthy. And we're doing it on their credit card. Young people have every reason to be enraged, and every issue they see, they look up, they get angry, and they see someone doing better than them, and then every day it is speedballed in their face that they are failing, that they are not doing as well as everyone around them. We have lost the script. Our kids are more.
I'm gonna stop right there. And I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna speak on that part he said about you see people around you doing better than you. That is, I'd be lying if I say that didn't get to me as a young man in America. Seeing other men being able to fully take care of their family, not have any issues on a monetary front, and be able to more readily help out their family with emotional and social needs, it brings a level of inferiority, at least in my head, when I see this stuff out and about. And so that statement is 100% true. I think about it. It's something I think about at least once, twice a day. Like, how am I going to be able to help my family, be better even if I'm not here, or be better while I'm here. I've been applying to jobs for the last, 6 months like crazy, and I finally just got, something, even like a reply back a couple weeks ago. Hopefully that goes well. I got 2 replies back. Hopefully, though, one of those 2 things goes well. Pray. I pray for that. And if you're out there, pray for me as well, because your boy just trying to live better. But that's not to say that my own bad decision making didn't put me where I'm at. Like I said earlier, this is a multifaceted issue, and like, I'm glad this man is on the news pointing this stuff out, but you put it out on the news, but there's no change. People can talk about issues, but if nothing ever changes, that the problem doesn't get, I guess, either soothed over or fixed, then nothing's really gonna change, and this sentiment is gonna get even worse that he's talking about years down the line. And not only are you going to have, disgruntled kids or angry kids, you're going to have people acting on those angers. I think that in terms of, school shooters, people that go shoot up schools, I think they fall in most of these categories he's speaking on. They're people that don't feel good about themselves. They look around and everybody has better than them. And they may or may not have had, other underlying issues that just weren't taken care of because nobody cares to, talk about them, or they just weren't in the best living situation where they never could have gotten that help. There's several things on that front, but I feel like these are some of the main points that really get people over the edge. Money, social media, the people around them, and those different things compound if they all are seen in a negative light to that person, and you add one on top of the other, and boom, you got somebody who's ready to act upon the feelings that they have. But I went on a whole tangent. Let's get back to the video and see what my man is spitting some more of.
More anxious and more depressed and more obese and more addicted, and we have made a purposeful decision to let this happen by ensuring the people around this table stay wealthy at the cost of young people.
So Scott, what the social element of that's the economic element, the social elements that you mentioned, the happiness, the anxiety, all of those things, that kids aren't getting together anymore, that they're not having kids. What happened in one generation? Social media has to play a role in it, I'm sure, but What else do you see that has created this climate for this generation?
I think you have the most talented, well-resourced people in the world and companies trying to convince a young man that he can have a reasonable facsimile of life in his basement behind a screen. You don't need friends. Go on Reddit or Discord. You don't need to get a job. Go on Robinhood or Coinbase and trade crypto and stocks. You don't need to go through the rejection and the expense and the humiliation and working out and having a plan and humor and showering to get a romantic relationship. You have YouPorn. So we have an...
Yeah, let me hop on this. I'm gonna hop on this. Mainly because I got Discord. But again, this brother speaking facts. And as you looking at this right here in front of our faces, this motherfucker has money. This brother has money. I'm not saying it's a bad message, but messengers suck sometimes. But you can't always use it as an excuse to not listen to the message. Like, this man could have been like dirt shit poor, talking this same stuff, and they would have called him crazy. But sometimes it's the people that got the money to advocate for your subsection or your group, and you have to like fall behind them on some stuff. I think that's one of the big reasons why Elon Musk was as big as he was, 5-6 years ago, going against Trump and some of the things Trump had going on. But back to this gentleman, there is this allure of never having to leave your house and you get paid for it. Like me sitting right here on YouTube right now making this video would make people think, I can do the same thing Buddy's doing and get my bread. Nah, fam, I have other, jobs outside of this. I step outside, I touch grass. I have a family, this is something I do for fun to get my own opinions out. If I just happen to make bread off this one day, cool, but that's not my main focus for this. And I'm not saying I wouldn't push somebody to have that as a main focus, to just stay in the house and make money, but you have to understand that's not something you can put on a resume if you start losing money. That's not a skill you can put down really for any kind of job outside of making content online. So you limit yourself and you box yourself up if this is all you do. This is why I'll say this. If you would have asked me 2-3 years ago, hey, should I go to college or should I, try to do my own thing with an online career? I would have been like, bro, try to go online. Like, it's cool out there. You see people getting this bread. You just got to grind and stay active. That's not really how it works. You could grind for 30 years, never make it. It's all about numbers and algorithm at this point when it comes to online. If you would have asked me 10, 15 years ago, yeah, you could just sit in front of a camera and make a little bit of money, because there wasn't this big upscaling of events happening in the space of streaming or making YouTube videos. But it's the way that the world is kind of taking us. You see, it says their number one skill young people need to thrive in the AI era is not coding. I wouldn't know if I fully agree with that, simply because I'm going for my cybersecurity degree and coding is heavily involved in that. But again, I touch grass. I get outside. I even in the coding space, you have to network. You have to know different people. You're not just sitting there, to yourself thinking that everything's gonna be fine. You're actually, out here, working and doing. But, I'll never sit and tell somebody ever again, hey, yeah, try to do this online stuff without some kind of degree. I would suggest you go get your degree. Make sure it's something useful. Don't do no fucking basket weaving or no stupid stuff like that. Like, get an actual degree. People are like business association degrees aren't good, or a business degree is bad. No, it's actually it's good. It's a degree. It shows you can do 4 years of school after mandatory school. It shows you can finish a task. That's usually what people are looking for. Honestly, is can you finish a task over a long-term period? College is one of those things that people see. Hey, at least you can finish this task. Will it be hard to find a job? Yes, but that's because people are being born every day right alongside the next person. And so there's always going to be people in your area to fill a certain subsection or a certain market. Find a way to break out of that. That's just like a roll of the dice at that point. Getting a job is not supposed to be a guaranteed thing. It's a roll of the dice. That is how capitalism set up society over a long-term period. Before, it used to be, a warehouse pops up in your area, everybody gets a job. That was like 100 years ago. But then you have the, I don't remember if it's the Industrial Revolution, but you had an industrial boom because of wars. You had women moving to the workforce that cut active roles by 50% for one subsection. That made a total of 100%, but it cut it by 50 for a whole subsection, for a whole group of people who were the only workforce in America. Then you fast forward and, degrees started seeming like they became a less of a thing, and it started going towards trades, which was fine. That created a whole other section of jobs though, and even those people still had degrees to a certain extent. I wouldn't say it was everybody, but some of them had them and they became management. Fast forward a little bit more, then you have, women start to do better than men in school. So now you have, in 100 years, one group of people who were the only group of people working, and then it goes to their jobs get cut in half. Now the people that they have to live with are now working, so that is a 2 household income. Not to mention the fact that inflation went crazy, but the way minimum wage worked, it didn't follow with it. So now you have to have a 2-person income. Crazy enough, and a society will build itself up and then crash itself as soon, like the first chance it gets, if the people up top don't care about the people down at the bottom. And nobody's saying you have to, but if you want to keep making money, you'll make sure the people at the bottom can at least survive off of what they're getting. I'm on a whole other tangent. Let's continue the video.
Entire generation, especially of young men, who are out home sequestering from society and missing out on what it means. There's a reason romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 15 minutes. True victory in life is hard. Going out, meeting someone, finding mentors, finding mates, that stuff is hard, but that's what real victory in real life is like. And because a lot of men feel rejected on dating apps, the number of jobs that are accessible to them has gone down. You have essentially a group of men who are saying, I want a low-risk entry into life, and they go down a rabbit hole. When they don't have social connections, and they don't get out, and they don't have the prospect of a romantic relationship, they're more prone to conspiracy theory, they're more prone to misogynistic content, they're less likely to believe in climate change, and some they become really bad citizens. We are producing.
I'm gonna speak on that. I'm one of those people who were roped into misogynistic viewpoints. 2020, I got on YouTube. I think that's when around the time I was trying to start streaming, for like the 3rd time in my life. And I met a group of people called Fresh and Fit. And I'm gonna be honest, I was one of those people that hopped into their live streams. I never donated to them niggas, but I hopped into their live streams and I heard what they were saying and I believed it to a T. What made it worse is I was already married. I already had everything I needed. But I was listening to what they were saying and it sounded so good. I tried to implement that in my own life. And I never snapped out of that until I realized I was going to be a father. Until I realized I was going to have a child. I didn't think anything was wrong with what they were saying. If I'd never had kids, who knows where I would be? Or if I never had a daughter, who knows where I would be mentally at this point in my life? And that's not to say they made me do anything, but their message definitely struck nerves with me because I never had any other men in my life really sit me down and be like, hey, when it comes to dealing with women, you should work it like this, or you should, do this certain thing. Usually when I reach out to people, it's already too late. I've already either done whatever it was that I wasn't supposed to do, or I've already, have my mind a certain way and I don't really want to change it. I just want to hear what somebody has to say. And so, man, getting roped up and all that, I was definitely one of those guys. But that's a story for another day. I can go a whole nother video on that one. But let's go.
Introducing too many of the most dangerous person in the world, and that is a young, broke, and lonely young man.
Why is it that so many of these young people that you're talking about seem to head into life after going to 4-year schools or 2-year schools or whatever, head into life with a lack of financial literacy? They don't know anything about money or the growth of money. All they know is the absence of money.
I think we need to have, in our curriculums in high school, a class on adulting. My kid, I see it in my house, my kid can do integers and basic calculus, but he doesn't understand the interest on his credit card. So there's just some basic kind of financial literacy that we're not teaching. And when you start replacing civics with computer science, you lose a sense of the country and you start learning about programming. And when you don't talk about basic financial literacy or even mating, I would like to see in the senior year of college mating dynamics and help men understand, and women, what is unique to them and their vulnerabilities to social media. I was talking about the challenges of men from social media. At exactly the wrong time in a young girl's life, she is presented with a valuation where she never gets to leave the high school cafeteria 24/7. And as my colleague Jonathan Hyde has pointed out, we've seen a dramatic uptick in suicide. But I think effectively we just don't have basic skills for young people. We're teaching them advanced things, but we're not teaching them the basics around what a mortgage is, what interest rates mean. So I think we could use just a basic class on adulting, junior or senior year.
Where I was at. But financial literacy is definitely something that you're teaching in high schools. I took civics. I didn't pay attention to civics. I'm gonna be honest. I was necessarily lucky to pass. I could have passed it with flying colors. At that point in my high school life, I just didn't care enough about school because I didn't see myself going anywhere further than high school, honestly. That was one of the reasons why I joined the military. I just didn't see myself going anywhere further than high school. But, life has its courses, and here I am about to have my associates in cybersecurity. So there are... Oh, yeah, if y'all want to see the video, here it goes right if y'all want to go watch the video yourself. I know I was yapping like crazy. But, there are just certain things that people should know and should have a grasp of before they get out of high school. There are things that should be taught even in middle school. I think you should be learning, the basics of money and how to manage it. I was watching, I think it was Asmongold, and he said when he was in middle school, his mom was giving him an allowance, and that taught him how to manage his money right. Everybody done got that kind of money to be able to get an allowance, and so I could, if there was something in school, and I'm not trying to put everything on the school to teach like the child, but I feel like if we want, stable citizens in America, we should be able to, we should at least put forth the effort to teach them about how to get their finances in order. I think that's it for this video. Like and subscribe if you like the content. If you want to see me do anything else like this, just let me know what kind of video you want me to watch, or just link me the video, tag me on it. I'll go watch it. I'll make a video, shout you out, and let it be known that, hey, you know, you're doing pretty big. If I ever, I'm trying to hit at least 100 views on a video. If I hit 100 views on this video, I'll slide somebody. I'll slide somebody $10. I ain't rich, so I can't be like, I'll give you $100. Hell no. I'll slide you like $5, $10. Either through Cash App or however you want me to send the money. I'll figure out how to do that at some point. But yeah, nah. Thanks for watching the video. Yeah.